is up, guys? It's the John Gasm coming at you today with 25 more Star Wars related facts. Today we are concluding our Star Wars Original Trilogy series by talking about the final installment in the original trilogy, Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. I am going to talk about the prequels with you guys sometime in the near future, probably whenever I get all of my Star Wars shirts back in my dorm. So yes, after this episode we are going to be taking a small break from the Star Wars series. That being said, the break does not start right now, so let's dive into the 25 things you probably didn't know about Star Wars Episode 6. For example, did you guys know that Episode 6 was the biggest grossing film of 1983? It was actually the first film to ever gross over $20 million in its opening weekend. But it didn't stop there. While the movie was in theaters, it actually managed to gross over $250 million. And that was all from a $32 million budget, so that's pretty insane. And actually, something you guys may not have known is that this film was originally going to be called Revenge of the Jedi. The reason they ended up changing it was because the producers didn't believe that a Jedi would ever seek revenge, being that Jedi are considered to be very righteous people. Another thing that you guys may not have known is that the Jabba's palace scenes were all filmed in Arizona. This ended up being quite the problem for the film crew because they had a really hard time avoiding the 35,000 dune buggy enthusiasts in the area. To preserve secrecy, the producers claimed to be filming a horror movie titled Blue Harvest. But despite having a massive chain link fence around the area and a 24-hour security team, they were not able to stop Star Wars enthusiasts from sneaking into the property and taking a couple pictures for themselves. Kind of going along with that, a fact that I find really interesting is that fake scripts were actually handed out to crew members who were felt most likely to leak the script to the media. And actually, some of the phony story elements that were in the script were indeed leaked. I've got a couple more audio facts for you guys because these are slowly but surely becoming my favorite type of fact. Darth Vader's footsteps were actually recorded in an underground tunnel by the Golden Gate Bridge. And speeder bike pass-by sounds were actually made by combining thunder sound effects with the sounds of a P-38 airplane. One thing that really blew my mind is that the Jabba the Hutt puppet actually cost $500,000 to make. And it took 3 months to build, and it weighed over 2,000 pounds. So maybe you can't blame George Lucas on relying on so much blue screen in the prequels. Puppets were obviously kind of a pain. And actually, do you guys remember the dancer in the beginning of the movie that Jabba drops into the Rancor pit? Well, actually, as she falls down, she loses her top, so that's kind of interesting, I think. A fact that I'm including mainly because it reminds me a lot of Pixar's A113 references. The mask on Leia's bounty hunter costume actually has the numbers 1138 going across the top of the helmet. This is because THX 1138 was actually George Lucas's first feature film and is actually referenced a couple of times in the series. And I'm sure you guys remember the famous Princess Leia gold bikini that's in this movie. Well, actually, the whole reason it was included was because the actress who played Princess Leia, Carrie Fisher, complained that her outfits in the first two movies didn't show off her body enough and you couldn't tell she was a woman. So in a way, the skimpy outfit was actually her idea. Another small bit of trivia that really blew my mind was that George Lucas actually had no idea how popular Boba Fett was with the audience. And he said that if he did know, he would have given Boba Fett a way more memorable death than he ended up getting. But actually, according to the extended universe, Boba Fett actually did escape the Sarlacc pit. On the last video where I talked about the extended universe, a lot of people were like, that isn't true anymore, ha ha ha, that fact doesn't count. But in my opinion, that really doesn't make it count any less. And actually, in the 2004 special edition DVD release, George Lucas was going to include a scene where Boba Fett climbs out of the Sarlacc pit, so that basically makes it canon. Almost. Another pretty cool thing that I had never noticed was that this was actually the first Star Wars film that showed a lightsaber battling anything else besides a lightsaber. Because on the sail barge at Jabba's palace, Luke actually fights guards with both staves and blasters. Do you guys remember in the last video where I talked about how in every Star Wars movie a character says, I have a bad feeling about this? Well, in Return of the Jedi, both C-3PO and Han Solo say it. Do you also remember in the last video where I told you that Harrison Ford actually wanted George Lucas to kill off Han Solo in The Empire Strikes Back? Well, guess what? In Return of the Jedi, he told George Lucas to do the same thing. However, George Lucas obviously refused, but he did consider having Chewbacca killed. so that would have been devastating. For those of you who are fans of the Star Wars series and of the internet, you probably have heard the famous line, "It's a trap," spoken by Admiral Akbar. Well, actually, that ridiculously famous line was originally scripted as, "It's a trick," but they changed it after it received a negative test screening with audiences. Admiral Akbar is the character who speaks that line, and he actually has kind of an interesting backstory which I had never known. At one point, he was actually Grand Moff Tarkin's personal slave and pilot. So you can't really blame him for wanting to destroy the Empire after that. I'm going to read this next fact for you guys just to make sure that I don't screw it up. From an engineering perspective, both Death Stars were poorly constructed because they did not have either safety or redundancy systems. When Wedge and Lando shot out the power regulator, the entire reactor exploded. But you see, a properly engineered power generator would have multiple backups and safety protocols to prevent such an occurrence from happening. I guess because the Death Star was so expensive, the Empire just really didn't want to spring for educated engineers. I've got 3 more facts for you guys before I let you go, and these are my favorite facts, so make sure you pay attention. First fact of the 3. At the end of the movie, when you see Darth Vader pick up Emperor Palpatine and throw him down the Death Star shaft, you hear the only time the Jedi theme song plays with a shot of Darth Vader in it. This was supposed to be symbolic and reflect his change from the dark side of the Force to the light side. Another pretty cool fact, that raspy breathing sound that Darth Vader has after he throws the Emperor down the shaft, it kind of sounds like a robot is trying really hard to breathe, which I guess is kind of what it is. That was actually supposed to be the breathing sound effect for Darth Vader all the time. I'm assuming the reason they changed it is because hearing that in every scene he was in would probably get kind of annoying. And also I think it makes his character come off as a little bit more weak than he really is. And the final fact I'm going to share with you guys today, and the reason it's my #1 favorite, is because it answers a question I've always wondered. That blue energy that explodes up the Death Star shaft after the Emperor gets thrown down it, that is actually the essence of the dark side of the Force. Personally, I never knew what it was, but now I'm glad I do. And that was the last of the 25 facts that I'm going to be sharing with you guys about Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you let me know by rating, commenting, and subscribing. And if you guys are feeling like being super fans today, make sure you follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, and like my Facebook fan page. On my Instagram, I actually shared a pretty sexy picture of Carrie Fisher in the Princess Leia costume that you guys might want to check out. But like I always say, thank you guys for stopping by, and stay fresh.